Hello, my name is Faina, and I have dedicated the last 7 years to honing my craft and fine-tuning my strategy.
Hi, I'm Louise Nonwheeler and I'm a trading psychology expert. I've worked with traders for almost a decade across the globe. I am a multi-award-winning clinical hypnotherapist and life coach. I am also the founder and creator of a proven online psychology program.
At Trading in the Zen, we believe that there is much more to trading than numbers and probabilities. Like an athlete, a trader should operate in their peak state. Each week, you will have mind-blowing interviews as well as actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better trader. Thanks for spending time with us today. Now, let's dive right in. Today, we're speaking with Richard Friesen. Richard works with professionals and business leaders who want to increase their personal effectiveness with joy and grace. His neuroscience-based mind-muscles model gives his clients the opportunity to reach their goals with online trading, simulations, interactive exercises, group support, and real-time decision processes. Richard has been a futures broker for Merill Lynch, a floor trader on the CME, CBOT, and the options floor of the Pacific Exchange. Let's get going.
So without further ado, welcome on the show, Richard. It's lovely to have you today. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. It's a beautiful day in San Jose, California, just south of San Francisco.
Sounds perfect. It's really nice to have you on today. We've got lots to talk about. So Faina's here with us.
Hi.
Hello, Faina.
Hello. It's so nice to have you. I'm incredibly excited to chat and pick your brain about all things trading.
Excellent.
Perfect. So let's dive in. Now, you have 30 years in the financial industry. So could we start by talking about your background, because you were a broker, a floor trader, and a financial software developer. So can you share your experiences and your background and past?
Sure. I started out with Merill Lynch as a broker, and I realized that almost all my clients lost money. And to pick up that phone and to do the cold calling, when I knew that if I engaged a client, they were most likely to lose money. And at that time, you guys are so young. Oh my gosh. At that time, round-term futures contracts were like $70. The bid-ask spread was huge. And then the floor would manipulate the prices. So even if you were good, even if you were right, you couldn't make money. What a difference it is now. Everybody can get just instant execution on tight bid-off spreads, along with very inexpensive commissions. So the world has now opened up to the independent trader. So I went from there to the floor of the Mercantile Exchange. I got hired by Chicago Research and Trading and built a trading desk for them out in San Francisco. And then I went back to Chicago, traded there on the Board of Trade and the Mercantile Exchange, and then came back and opened my own trading firm on the San Francisco Exchange. And what I noticed was, as I started building my own practice, that the traders that I hired, some of them would just, about a third of them would just start making money, because I had an option trading strategy that was just singles and doubles, not a lot of risk, but just consistent. A third of them would do okay, but a third of them just couldn't make money given the same opportunities. So I brought in a hypnotherapist. It turned out my sister Wendy was newly minted out of hypnotherapy school. And we discovered the hidden, the deeper, the subconscious belief systems and identity that prevented these traders from moving forward. And that's when I started developing an interest in the mindset.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. That's really interesting. So let's talk about hypnotherapy and the subconscious and kind of, let's talk about your journey and where you're at now, because I'm very intrigued. I'm sure the listeners are going to be intrigued to hear that you're the founder of Mind Muscles Academy. So can you share more about that? And do you work with the subconscious still?
Certainly. So, what I discovered working with the traders on the floor and their own subconscious attitude, and this is the surprise. Nobody's going to believe me here. You guys probably won't believe me. But for all the work traders do, the years they spend, the strategies they develop, working on mindset even, the surprise is they're not prepared to step into success. The typical equity curve, if you know what I mean, say I'm left to right here, it goes up, up, boom. In 2 or 3 days or a week, they go into a downward spiral and lose it all. And at this peak, something happens. They're stepping into a new world. Can you imagine if you're consistently trading and you increase your size, manage your risk, how that will change your world, change your friends, change your life? All of a sudden, you are an incredibly powerful person. Guilt, responsibility, a whole new context. Well, our survival mechanism says we know how to survive struggle, but we don't know how to survive success. And that's the biggest surprise to me, is inviting my clients and my students to step into a context of success. So, for example, one of the I call them guided visualizations we do, is we create a master trader's mindset. We create a house, a place, and they describe it in detail. And then we start to step into it. And we look for the resistance all along the way. And some of them cannot put their hand on that front door. I have them look back and see all the people in their life. What do those people say about you stepping into the master trader's mindset? Oh my gosh, you've gone over to the enemy. You're never going to succeed. Well, that means that you're not one of us anymore. So we have all the cultural, the family, the upbringing, and we have all these resistances. So by creating this guided visualization, we can start to just tease out and elicit all the anchors that people have, and to get them to actually step into this world. And in my current model, we only step into a new context if it feels better, honors our values, and gets us to our goals. So that's what we do, is say, can this feel better? And when they say, oh my gosh, this feels so much better, we're on our way. But until, there's all the thing about discipline and willpower. No, in fact, there's trading coaches that talk about be more disciplined, use your willpower. Well, in my model, what we're doing is we're setting up for struggle. If you say be more disciplined, that means we're acknowledging that you're in a struggle and you have to try harder and be more disciplined. Whereas I say, let's step into a context that feels better. Now, we have all sorts of subconscious things that want to keep us in our current survival mode. But if we can do that, then the struggle ends.
Fascinating.
It's a very interesting point, because as a trader, we used to say, prepare for the war. And when you do that, you show up already at a disadvantage, because your adrenaline is pumping. You're not at a zero. And when the market starts moving, it's only going to get exacerbated and feel worse, as opposed to calming your mind and calming your system. And you already come for a battle, right? In self-fulfilling prophecy. Then you create a battle because you already came geared for it. I already have, my armor. I'm ready to go. And so would you say that tilts are a form of self-sabotage?
Oh, yeah. There's a book, The Hour Between Dog and Wolf. And in the book, they take blood and brain chemistry tests, I don't know how they do it, of traders. And when traders are in a slump, their brain chemistry is different than when traders have a series of winning trades. And we all know about getting cocky, of overconfidence, and I can do this. I don't have to listen to my system anymore. I don't have to trade carefully. I can cancel my stops. After a series of wins, our brain chemistry shifts. And we get overconfident. One of the things you mentioned earlier was, what are specifics that people can do? We can talk about theory. So like I have a cocky clanger exercise, for example. So when we get cocky, we've built in this little thing that says, be careful here. Like what's the worst thing? I hire a new trader to trade on the floor. What's the worst thing that can happen in the first week of trading?
Severe drawdown?
Win.
Yes, Louise, right on the button. Oh my God, I've got this wired.
Yep.
I am a super person.
Superhero. They've got the Superman on.
But if, the new trader comes to me, he's lost for, money, quite a bit of money during the first week. His hands are shaking or her hands are shaking because there were some women in the group too. And they're just saying, man, I've lost money. Well, I'm checking them, of course, all the time. I know this. And that is perfect. Because then we can say, okay, let's break this down and let's see what's going on. But if have the brain chemistry and we think we've got it nailed, then there's not much I can do to interfere between that brain chemistry and their behaviors.
Mm-hmm. I'm a hypnotherapist as well. I've been working with traders for many years, and I know how powerful our subconscious part of the mind is. And I do use a similar concept myself. I call it future pace, where I project clients into the future and, take them to a safe place, but start to reframe and change things. However, my question is, do you believe working with the subconscious is much more powerful, faster, as opposed to working with the conscious?
Let me reframe that a little bit. We lie to ourselves. We lie to everybody. We fool ourselves, very well that our memories are reconstructed and rebuilt over time. So what I do is I start with a physiology, and that's where most of the truth is. I'll watch and I'll just, like you can see me that a client will say, the market, those guys just manipulated it. And I'll notice like lips getting tight or something. And so I'll say, okay, let's tighten your lips a little. Notice what's going on with your lips. And let's exaggerate that, tighten them more and more and more. If your tight lips had a voice, what would it say? So we get to that subconscious part, starting with the physiology. We work with I have the golden keys. We start with physiology awareness. We look at acceptance of what we discover. We look at our emotions, and we look at the quality of our thoughts. And by doing that, we can start to work both on the conscious level and on the beliefs on the subconscious level. But I like starting with physiology because I think that's a more direct path to what's really going on.
Yeah. Does that mean that you muscle test? Do you use like kinesiology or muscle testing?
Yeah. On Zoom, that's a little more challenging, but mostly watching the breathing, the facial expressions, the movement of the head. And that gives me enough clues.
I was when I was trying to work through my own tilts, and I read a book, and it said start to journal your behavior, right? And I would say leg is shaking, jaw is tightening, and then breathing is shallow, tongue is out. And when you write it out, then the pattern of the tilt was starting to emerge when my body was starting to go into that space where the emotions were hijacking the brain. And do you have any tools to how does one, even because sometimes even if I was noticing it and still do, right? I notice it, I know I'm doing it, but the body's the finger is still clicking, it's still doing its own thing. I can't get a hold on that sucker, so it's just still clicking, and I'm like, wow, this feels like a tilt. Click, 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 click. Is there something outside of, because someone suggested a cold shower, which is great, but in the middle of my workday, I'm not just throwing and jumping in a shower. That's great. I used to do sit-ups, getting a really nice six-pack. That's going for me. But is there a way to somehow have a conversation or a tool where once I notice it, do you walk away? Do you go around the block 3 times? What can one do to like catch it early?
Yeah, well, what I do sometimes still, especially if I'm under some pressure, I'll set an alarm on my phone for every 5 minutes. It goes off. I take my physiology. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. How's my breathing? I notice my chest is a little tight right now. My voice is I'm exaggerating now, it's a little tight. So now I'm taking a breath. It's more relaxed, but I don't have to change a thing. The first thing is just awareness. I notice right now my voice is a little lower. It's a little slower because I was a little wound up in here. Okay, awareness, my physiology. Emotions. I'm excited. talking to you guys is really cool because there's, you have enough experience and you really move the conversation forward. And I'm just fascinated to keep going. So there's some excitement here. The quality of my thoughts is, they're smooth. There's no judgment going on. I'm just feeling very relaxed and at home with you guys. So every 5 minutes, I'll just do an awareness exercise. And the biggest part of this is no judgment. And even to start, I tell my clients, don't change a thing. If your chest is tight and your voice is tight, don't change it. No judgments, just notice it. And what happens is we get a higher level of awareness. And eventually when we practice this, that awareness now becomes agency. It can actually now drive the decisions and the behaviors and the processes that you want. But first it has to be aware. With practicing the awareness, it then almost has a consciousness of its own, and it can start to make decisions. And those decisions can be from a higher level self.
Yeah.
When you're in a severe drawdown, how do you, because it happens to all of us, right? We have the great runs, but sometimes we have day after day after day after day. How does one come in and approach each day as a different day, independent of the previous day, because your psyche is already ready for a battle? And I've tried everything. I've tried meditation right before, and I've tried get on my Peloton bike and biking, and I've tried to come in, in a relaxed state. And the minute that I see the chart, it's like I never talked to myself. I never did any of that. And all I think about is like, oh no, here we go. Right. So how does one leave the previous day behind and approach each day independently so that this kind of landslide does not continue?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things here. First, if there's some consistent losses and you're following the process, we have a lot of emphasis on the market mood. And that means that if you have let's say basically a trending system, and the market is trending with few pullbacks, you're going to make money. If on the other hand, you have a mean reversal system and the market is choppy with support and resistance, you're going to make money. So the most critical thing is to know, does your system apply to the current market? And a big part of our training has to do with the moment, those changes, when the market is shifting its quality, and to know what to apply to it. And we have a spreadsheet that helps out with that. And the second thing is, oh boy, there's so much to talk about here. If your dream, let's say, is to become an independent trader, and this is going to solve your problems, you're going to be able to, buy a house, you're going to get a better maid, you're going to buy the fancy car, the whole bit. And if that dream is going to verify your quality as a person and all that, when you're making money, every tick in your direction is a verification of your dream. Tick goes against you, against you, against you. It's not just that you're losing that amount of money, but you're losing your dream. You're losing your life. You're losing your future. Spiral down and down you go. So in addition to understanding market moods, we work on process. And one of the things you guys mentioned was, process versus outcome. And what we do is we look at what is your system. And let's say it gets 40% profitable trades, 60% unprofitable trades. And I could go through the math here, but it would take a bit. But we come up with how much is each trade worth. And let's say each trade is worth $500 on average. The ones that go your way will make 2,000. Your losers will lose 300, let's say. And you average those out, 60-40, and you say, well, every trade is worth $500. Now, if you follow your system, then you'd never have what we call a losing trade. They're all lucrative because over the large sample size, they're going to make money. So that's one way to fool your brain, because as you know, your brain gives you more pain for a given dollar loss than it gives you pleasure for the same given dollar gain. So can we avoid the pain by fooling it by saying, another lucrative trade? I followed the system.
Yeah. And that brings me on to my next question, because as we know, being in the trading world, losses, one of the most challenging things for traders is losing money, is losses. And, it can take days to recover from a series of losses. So what would your advice be to a trader who has kind of got to the point of revenge trading and over trading? Because this is very common, as we know.
Oh, boy. Certainly, when we go, I think the word is on tilt. That means that we are, and in fact, I just talked about that. Dream is being threatened. So we go on tilt because something really important, the future of our life is now at stake, and we've got to make it back. So if it's that deep, then we really need to look at what is driving us and how important is our dream, and is trading fulfilling that dream, what I call a hole in the heart. If I have a hole in the heart, let's say my dad never recognized me, which was in my case the truth. I need to prove it to him. I need to prove it to the world that I'm somebody, I'm something. I need the trophy spouse. I need the car or whatever. And then a series of losses really hits so deep that I go into a context. My brain chemistry changes, everything shifts. So the question is, can we be aware of it? And at that transition point, that's where it counts. Where can we recognize that transition? There's a movie called World War Z with Brad Pitt. And in it, the zombies are coming and he gets attacked by a zombie, but he doesn't know if he's got infected and he'll become a zombie. So he's with his family. He's on the top of a building and he stands right at the edge of like a 15-story building, looking down on his tippy toes, so that the moment he feels he's becoming a zombie, he can fall forward and he won't kill his family. Now, he didn't, of course, because it's a movie and it's Brad Pitt. But as a trader, can we have that sensitivity before we fall into that context where literally our brain chemistry changes and we have no ability? And that's what our training does, is that check-in awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. I think awareness is one of the most important things for traders. And as you mentioned a brief while ago, you were sort of saying you almost have to become the observer. So you almost sometimes, like meditation, you almost have to look outside in. And when we're in that space of observation, we're in a space where we can create change, and we can change. We have a choice. So it's very interesting.
I really like what you just said, that if you can build up that observation, eventually that part of you that is observing can add agency, not just observe, but from that higher level, start to make decisions. And that is not a simple process, because it requires new neurological connections in our brain that we've never had before. And it takes some intention. So my process is not to try to discipline that into existence, but to create small incremental steps that feel better and start that new neural connections, that new habit, that new pathway, so that we can say, oh, that felt better. Even if it's small, then we can say, okay, let's take the next step to something else that feels better.
Yeah.
So I try to think about on a weekly basis the 1%, right? So every week I try to pick the 1%. I'm going to do something better and work on that for the week, whether it be letting my targets run longer, whether it be not taking the first impulsive move out, but waiting for something to prove itself to me. So those 1% shifts should add up to change, and then I don't feel like I have to work on everything at once. But sometimes, like, I work on that same 1% over and over and over again. And like, what happens when you know the lesson, but you cannot make that shift? Where does one get stuck? It seems like a small shift, right? 1%. But why can't the brain just grasp that 1% and move to the next 1%?
Well, that's I think you've just asked the most difficult question you can possibly ask. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So persistent trading mistakes. We know we're doing them, and we continue to do them. So what I have is a application called Mind Metrics, or in this case, I've upgraded it to Market Metrics. And what we do is we put down all the persistent trading mistakes we have, and then we put down their positive intention. For example, I cancel my stops and take big losses. That's the trading problem. What's the positive intention? Oh, so I don't have to feel the pain of loss. Great. That's a positive intention. Let's look at other ways to do it. And then we create the third category is it feels so much better when I don't have to worry about big losses. So once we have that positive intention, then we start filling it in. And there's yellow, red, green squares that you just click on. And we can see the process. And it's a shared application. So with my clients, I can look at it, and in less than a second, I can tell exactly where the issues are, because we have the issues listed and we have it there. And especially if in groups, and you say, how in the moment? Now, my guess is, Louise, if you were trading and I was there on Zoom with you, or would you be making the same trading mistakes?
No.
Why not?
No.
Because I have someone who is watching over you, and it's like a system of checks and balances. There's someone who says, hey, you said you weren't going to do this. And then it kind of jars you back into reality where you just don't, because, trading is a kind of a lonely sport, and you go down a rabbit hole and it's just you, and you get into this tunnel and you can't see or hear anything. And someone jars you awake to say, you said you weren't going to do it. So I guess it's accountability.
Yeah. What I'm doing is I am talking to your higher self. So we're connecting on a higher self level. And as a result, I'm there. You're going to stay up there with me. So how can you do that by yourself if you don't have a coach? And that's possible to do. We have exercises that continually remind you to step into your higher self. And from that, then we say, what's the positive intent of that behavior? Let's figure out a better way to do it. And then by scoring yourself, even if nobody else looks at that chart, every day, if you look at that chart, you can see the reds, the yellows, the greens. You know that you're going to enter those in, and then you're going to see them, and that's another way to keep yourself at that higher level and that higher level of awareness and agency.
Interesting.
Thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that is, really evident is, I do talk a lot about beliefs and the belief system, because as we know, that's what shapes us, and it's our core. However, working with traders, not only is it important, I think, to identify their belief system and their beliefs about their worth, success and failure, but also to identify their beliefs and their relationship with money. Because it's great to work on their performance, have a good strategy. It's very important, good risk management. However, if there's limiting beliefs around money and success, there's still going to be a brick wall.
Well, you couldn't have said it better. And that's what led me to write the book, A Private Conversation with Money. Because what I noticed was that, well, let me give you an example. One of the traders we had started out. He came from West Virginia, and in the United States, that's one of the poor areas. They have large families, uncles, aunts, weekly, they get together for barbecue, whatever. But there's just poverty. There's, shacks and outhouses and everything. So he came and he's really smart. He followed the system. He started making a lot of money, gave it away. So under hypnosis, what came up was, oh my gosh, if I make money, I'll be excommunicated from my family and all the connections and all my history. So the relationship with money is really important. And can we step into wealth? And as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the biggest surprises I had when training traders was, in addition to all the strategy and execution and all that, is if they didn't have a positive visual image of them stepping into wealth, that their survival mechanisms, like most of us learn survival mechanisms with struggling.
Yeah.
And struggling becomes part of what we know. So if, for example, part of my struggle was not being recognized by my father, which I wasn't, well, then I'm setting up those situations in my life so I can have that struggle because I know I can survive it. Can I survive a lot of recognition? I discount it. I let it go, like water off a duck's back. I don't hear it. No, I want to stay in my survival mechanism. Now, I'm making a bit of fun of myself and exaggerating a bit, but stepping into wealth and being able to do that consistently is one of the biggest surprises I have had as a coach. And that's why I wrote the book, A Private Conversation with Money.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Thank you. Let's talk about your book, Private Conversation with Money. I will certainly be purchasing it after the show, and I'm sure Faina will.
Faina will be reaching out for some coaching is what Faina going to be doing.
That's all. I'm here.
Thank you for sharing what inspired you to write the book. But tell us about the book, Private Conversations with Money. Does that mean a private conversation with ourselves?
Well, that's the secret, but let's not tell anybody. What I notice is in our culture, wealth, money, taxation, politics, the divide is just huge. And the visceral response, in fact, I'm running a book. My next book is Healing the Political Divide. And I'm running a group of very diverse people. And it's amazing, the vitriol, the belief systems that are there. So what I'm doing in this is I take Joe, he's a journalist. He is very woke. He is anti-money, anti-wealth, and he is struggling financially. And the character Money comes along in the middle of the night, wakes him up, and they start having a series of conversations. And during this series of conversations, Joe struggles, he fights money, he does everything that all my clients do, so that you can viscerally, fight with Joe and believe what Joe believes and slowly have a whole new context being able to step into. And that new context gives you a rapport with money. And in the end, Joe looks at money as a certificate of appreciation. So if you do something for me, I give you a certificate of appreciation. If and vice versa, if I do something for you, you give me a certificate of appreciation. Now, here's what blows a lot of people's minds. The more certificates of appreciation I collect, the more value I've delivered to the world. And yes, there's fraud and cheater and all that. But for the most part, the more wealth I have delivered honestly means the more value I have delivered. And once you go into that framework, then you realize, people listening to this, I can see breathing getting tight, stomachs getting tight, what? People wanting to argue. Mm-hmm. But if you can step into that let me put it this way. If you're in the trading business and you're not fully being able to step into that context, then you're going to have subconscious programs that are sabotaging your success.
Mm. Mm. See, I come from the culture or was raised with money was never enough. There wasn't enough. There wasn't enough money. There wasn't enough money. There was enough. You have a little bit of money for this, but you better save for the rainy day. Mm-hmm. And I carried that through my whole life, and that shows up in trading. My scarcity mindset of money is not enough. I try to grab onto whatever I have. And then the losses are really hitting hard because you put back into that same anxious cycle of like, well, there I go. Money's not enough. Money's not enough. And it is really, really a difficult conversation with myself to say, you're not that person. It's a whole new world with new possibilities. And a lot of people come from that same, like, you have to work hard. Money is not, that saying, you don't find money on the street. You got to work hard. Money is not, what are you spending that money for? You better be saving because or you eat too lavishly, or you don't need that stuff, even though it makes you feel good. You don't need that extra, whatever, So that mindset, I feel, whatever conversations you were brought up with as a kid, and it's a running sort of scheme behind the scenes of your mind constantly. How does one deal with that and that not bring into trading, or how does one get out of that? Because I that is, like when you have a last hurdle, that is my last hurdle, because I have a strategy that developed over 7 years that works. I'm aware, I know my tilts, but that dialogue in the back of my mind is so strong that no matter if meditation is helping, what does one do? And I'm not the only one, because I hear this a lot.
A lot. Okay, so first, let's say if we had time, we would talk to that voice, and we're gonna listen to it. That voice is there for an important message. So what we do is we discover if you were a client, for example, we would talk to that voice. We would find out when it came to you, where it came from, and what is its positive intent for your life. So once we get the positive intent, then we can say, would you like to do a better job with that? So if, for example, the positive intent might be to stay out of poverty. I'm making that up. I don't know what it would be.
To keep me safe.
To keep you safe. Okay, great. So I'm just going to zip through 2 hours of coaching here.
Right.
So does that voice have a name? If you were to give that voice a name, what would it be?
The little me.
Little me. Okay. So little me, you're there to keep Fina safe, right?
Yes.
Great. And you do that by making sure she doesn't waste money or doesn't have a lot of money paying, right?
Right.
Okay, excellent. Would you like to do a better job?
Would love to. It's stressful to be little me.
So in trading, Fina has a problem in that your voice actually may not be helpful for her. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So how would you like to be more helpful?
I would love to.
Okay, great. Now, I won't go on from there because sometimes that can get personal and deep, but that's in, 2 minutes. That's, what we would do in 2 hours. We would listen to the voice. We would respect it. We would look for its positive intent. And then we would see if it's willing, from the positive intent point of view, to give you a voice that's more helpful. And almost always the voice will say something like, oh my God, what such a relief. I'm so tired of this. Or the voice will say, oh my gosh, you mean I can help her out just by giving her a different, say something different? And then all of a sudden now we're on a roll. We're now going from conflict. I'm going to make you a better person by conflict and stress and struggle, to I'm going to invite you into a better place that feels better.
So you invite that voice along for the ride as opposed to fighting it. You're getting the voice on your side to be the wind beneath your wings as opposed to your opponent. Because as a person, we fight with that voice, right? It's confronting, and we're constantly banging heads saying, I don't want to be that person. This is just crazy. And then you get into a negative self-talk that you wouldn't do to another person. You're so stupid. How could you do that? If somebody would put a camera, they think that we're insane. But I see this all the time where people are like, you are so dumb. You're so stupid. And I catch myself saying, would I say that to another human being? Would that be productive for that to change, right? So I understand. Then you invite that voice to join you and sort of become your compadre on your journey as opposed to your opponent. That's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. So we can respect the voice. We can respect its positive intent. And sometimes that voice, when I'm working with people, will go, oh my gosh, you're actually listening to me. You understand my pain. Sometimes this voice, when we were younger, saved us. It helped us survive. Now, as an adult, the methodology to survive may no longer be as effective, but that voice came to you almost always around 5 or 6 years old, and it was there in a difficult situation where we didn't have many alternatives, we didn't have any power, and it did the best it could to help us survive. And it's time to respect that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking about the inner child work. I've done it personally and professionally, and it's been some of the most rewarding work I've done on myself and for clients. So it sounds like you do a lot of work around the inner child and kind of nurturing the inner child, talking to the inner child. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah. So let's talk to all those different voices. Some of my clients have 4 or 5 different voices that represents voices from the past, and the conflicts and the ability to make a trading decision become very difficult. So healing those voices, listening to them, getting them into rapport. Like one of my clients says, oh, he has a very angry voice. And he'll say, oh, my angry voice is here. Thank you, angry voice. Thank you for showing up. I get the message. Now, while trading here, I need you to sit over in that chair. So he has a chair for his angry voice. He says, for right now, I need you to sit over there. Would that be okay? And the angry voice will say, okay. So we all have different methods of taking care of those voices so that we're in rapport in trading or any other business we're in, or in relationships. My gosh, I have a habit in my relationship with my wife that just hasn't been helpful. It stayed there for years, and learning about that inner voice, why I did it, how it protected me. And now I can say, oh, thank you. I don't need to withdraw here. I can stay here. And boy, that has made such a difference.
Oh, wow.
I think people don't realize how much trading becomes the monetary depiction of you as a human being, because every conversation you have with yourself, it's just now translated to charts and your behavior on the chart, but how much of who you are, your belief systems, your fears, your dreams, your aspirations, it literally is a numerical depiction of your inner state and everything you are. And it's so confronting, because I think as traders, we work so much on our conversations with ourselves, on our mind, it's beyond the discipline, because yes, I say I want to go to the gym every day, but if I'm not really motivated in a way, or it wasn't part of my conversation, it will be hard to do, right? So you have to change the dialogue, and we're like a work in progress. We're constant. I think I work on myself ad nauseum. I don't know, like morning to night, you always in some sort of
can I interrupt you for a minute? Say, yes. I work on myself. I work on myself. What if you were to say, in fact, say this, I am going to invite myself to step into rapport and feel so good about my new behavior. Say that out loud.
I'm going to invite myself to step into rapport and feel so good about my new behavior. That felt weird.
Okay. It did feel weird. It is unusual. Imagine the difference if that's what the voice was, rather than should, have tos. All of a sudden, it becomes an invitation to something better.
A much gentler approach to yourself.
Man, let's be gentle with ourselves, please. And what you brought up is so important, that trading, because of its feedback, it plumbs the depths of our psychology.
Yes.
So if you want to go through life and not make any changes, just don't become a trader.
Right?
But if you really want to experience the potential of the power you have as a human being, and you're willing to work through all that, trading is one of the most focused ways to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, the only limitations are the ones in our mind.
And it's also you against you. You can't blame anyone. You can blame the market if you want, but that's just ridiculous. People scream, look at the
they manipulated the market. Oh, they took out the stops.
Yeah. Or those banks certainly know where I stand, and they just came and took my stop.
I know.
They're just hunting for my
two contracts. They knew I had them.
Because I'm going to change the game, with my 2 contracts. I wanted to get that last 2, because without those last 2, they weren't going to succeed, right. So this is kind of absurdity also of it is the most rewarding and amazing experience. It's also absurd, confronting. There's like such a plethora of emotions of what it is. Are you looking at things jump on the chart, right? And then you equate it to like your whole life thought process and your personal value and your childhood is all in those little jumping candles. And it's really hard to understand unless you survived one day, you against the market, and then you start to learn a lot about you, but also how to weather the storm or how to find some peace.
You have to build some resilience. In fact, what I'm going to do for your listeners, if they go to conversations.money/Zen, Zen, I'll have a free online course that goes along with the book, and it deals with most of the money issues that people have. So conversations.money/Zen.
Thank you very much. We'll put that in the description.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Richard, I'm intrigued. What is or was your biggest trading surprise?
Stepping into success. I was not ready to step into success. I don't know how much time we have, but I had an internal limit, and I had a voice in the middle of the night. And it was April of 1995, middle of the night. I heard a voice, and it said, "Rich, you're only worth $200,000 a year." I sat up in bed. Wife was sleeping beside me. Nobody else was in the room, but the voice was clear. I got up, showered, dressed, and drove to the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange in San Francisco. Got there before the doors opened. And I thought about, what does that voice mean? And I realized it was an internal limit. When the doors opened, normal Rich Friesen, philosophy major, therapist, standing at the back, kind of pecking at orders here and there. And I went and I said, I'm done with this. And I went and stood right in the best spot. Now, most people, floors are no more. So most people won't understand this, but you don't own a spot in the pit. You have to fight for it. You pick purple with the biggest capital, the toughest, the meanest, get the best spot. So I stood where the 2 busiest brokers were, right in front of the exchange staff. The rest of the market makers came in, and the guy who owned that spot, who always stood there, kind of went, whoa. And before the bell went off, he tapped me on the shoulder. I didn't move. The pit just walked back because they knew what was going to happen. And we started pushing and shoving, and the exchange staff says, you guys get into a fight, it's a $10,000 fine for both of you. So I imagined I had concrete boots. I stayed there. And when the bell went off, options open in series. Buy 20, sell you 10, buy 50, sell 50, buy you 20. I just went berserk, yelling and screaming all the way. And the pit thought Rich Friesen, the philosophy major that stood at the back of the pit, had lost his marbles. But I went on to make many times that. And what it was is I didn't deserve that. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't detail-oriented enough. I couldn't remember, where support was and resistance was. I couldn't remember all that. But so I had this internal belief about my identity that really kept me from excelling. And so the biggest surprise, and the traders I work for, is, are we prepared for success? And what do we need to do that?
Yeah. Great questions. And thank you very much for sharing that. Amazing, unique story. It's, I think, going before we wrap up the show, I think it's become quite evident, I mean, for me, that the fear of success is much higher and more common than the fear of failure, or it's stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, well, it depends on the person, but it's everyone has it to some degree because we're stepping into a new context that our survival mechanism has not learned to manage.
Yes.
What is the best piece of trading advice you've ever received that shifted your perspective outside of that voice who told you were worth 200K of trading advice? Have you ever received that was like, oh, wow, that is going to shift my perspective?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I just, I can't think of anything in particular other than the development over the years. And what I did was, in fact, I have it down here, I developed a 200-page trading manual. And the 200-page trading manual steps through all the issues that traders have, and especially for trading the options on the floor and everything like that. And I was reading it the other day because I'm starting a social media campaign with lots of little things and pulling bits out of there, is that there's just a lot of little pieces that can be put into place. And the challenge, of course, is, given the complex adaptive systems of the market, how do we measure the effectiveness of each of those pieces? And I think that measuring the effectiveness of all the little bits is probably the biggest thing that I experienced, but it's certainly not one piece of advice other than it's your mindset, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you very much. Richard, I don't want to let you go. Please stay. But we have come to the end of the show, and please, please, please come back. But when you do, if you would love to come back, could we do a video podcast instead, if that's okay? Sure. Perfect.
That would be absolutely wonderful. I'd love to do that. And we can look to do, like I've done a series with some people, and we can look so we can drill down on specific issues as versus, just the higher level.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah, we would love that.
Thank you so very much for your time. I've had so many aha moments.
Oh, this was wonderful. You guys are it's like stepping into just a wonderful experience, and just the creative conversation. It feels like it flows so well. So that says a lot of great things about you and your awareness and your presence and ability. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Richard. And we will put your contact details and your website in the descriptions on all of the platforms. So thank you very much again.
Take care.
If you would like to be a guest on the show, then please contact us at info@tradinginthezen@gmail.com. If you're a trader who is struggling with their psychology, then please go to www.hypnosisfortraders.co.uk. There are various trading psychology packages and programs that will transform you as a trader. For one-to-one trading strategy mentoring sessions with Faina, please contact her below. Her details are in the description. Thank you.